I'm a purpose-driven dude, man. I'm in this business to help people. I'm in this world to help people.
Holy man.
I've failed many a times, but my biggest thing is make sure that I fail forward. That time between my fitness career and my real estate career, I didn't know who I was and what my identity was.
He was a sports performance coach, but he is now the founder of REI Junkies. He is a real estate coach, a mentor, and a true business leader.
When we wake up in the morning, we're excited to jump out of bed and go to work. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're doing well, keep doing it and do more of it.
And what I'm hearing from you is like an openness.
I was always striving to that next level. What's next? What's next?
I already hear, boom, you're like, problem, I'ma solve it.
Yep.
That's a entrepreneur mantra. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Diehard Entrepreneur Stories podcast. Today on our show, we have Vaughn Bethell. Vaughn is a true diehard entrepreneur with a deep passion for real estate investing and helping others achieve their dreams. In a past life, he was a sports performance coach, but he is now the founder of REI Junkies, which maintains several real estate ventures to include wholesaling, owner finance, loan servicing, among others. He is a real estate coach, a mentor, and a true business leader. Vaughn is one of the top individuals I think about when it comes to this concept of pivoting, and one of the most mission-driven individuals I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And today you're going to hear some of his stories. Vaughn, welcome to the podcast, man.
Oh man, Devin, thanks so much for having me.
Vaughn, as we get into it, I'd really enjoy if you gave some of your background for our audience, talk about sort of how you even got into entrepreneurship. And, I know that you're a very driven person. That's something I've got to see personally. And I know you were a sports performance coach, but really, what made that connection for you to go from working as a driven sports performance coach to boom, all of a sudden I'm going to take all the risk and go in on business?
The drive comes from being a former college level Division I athlete, and then playing at the national team level. So I played for the Bahamas national team too, as well. So, just growing up as an athlete from 8 years old, a soccer player, right? You just get that drive and that determination. And we see that a lot in, just successful, business owners, CEOs. But, I went to college here in Greenville, South Carolina at Firm University on a soccer scholarship. And to be honest with you, I came to college to play soccer and to have a good time, right? But I ended up majoring in health and exercise science, and it was one of the toughest majors at Furman. It was actually, considerable to like a dual major. But how I got into it is kind of funny because I was like, oh, all these guys do is work out and do program design all day. So while I'm playing soccer, I can work out and design programs or whatnot, and didn't realize that I had to study anatomy and exercise physiology and all that stuff. But yeah, man, long story short, I ended up majoring in exercise science. And I did an internship between my junior and senior year in college as a personal trainer and just fell in love with it. And it was actually at a bodybuilding gym, but I saw that they were trying to train some of these high school and college level athletes like bodybuilders. And I knew, physiologically, that wasn't the right thing to do. So I just kind of got this passion for training high level athletes. And that's what started my sports performance career.
I already hear, it's funny because as you're talking, I already hear, boom, you're like, problem, I'ma solve it. Right?
Yep.
That's an entrepreneur mantra, right? Like, identify a problem and then own it and let's solve it. And so I see you take that athletic background and then you see something messed up and you're like, nah, how can we fix this? I love it, man. Please continue.
So I did that internship for about 6 months. And after that internship, they actually hired me on full time. So I started doing personal training full time after I finished my soccer career. And then, after about a year and a half working at that gym, I decided to open up my own facility. And I think that entrepreneur background comes from, my dad's an entrepreneur. He's owned his own construction business since I can remember. Right. And so I had that drive and I was like, I just can't work for somebody else. Right. And then, I think it had a little bit of that stubbornness, whereas, I'm like, man, these guys are training people, but they're not doing it right. And, I'm the best trainer in here for sports performance. So I could do this on my own. Right.
Oh yeah.
And so I decided to venture out on my own and open up my own facility. And in January of 2005, I opened up the doors to my own sports performance company or facility with 23 clients that I was training on soccer fields and in this gym. And
oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, man. And over the course of the next 11 years, I grew that from 23 clients to 350 clients and a staff of 14. But one of the things that they don't tell you is when you jump out there and say, hey, I'm a good technician, I'm really good at what I do, I could do this on my own, is that, oh crap, now I got to learn business. Right.
Right. Okay.
So there is a pivot there from the beginning of after like the first year, I was like, I got to learn how to run a business. Right. So I spent the next 10 years of that career learning the business. Right. So I think that gave me a big leg up as I decided to pivot to real estate.
Okay. Just to kind of frame it for myself here, it's not like you were, you're working this job and you saw a dead end and then all of a sudden, boom, you jump in on real estate or these business ventures. It's like, it is a natural progression doing something that, like you pointed out, technically speaking, you're already the expert. Now you just got to figure out how do I get all the other stuff, the business stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Yeah. I guess that first major pivot as you see it.
Getting in the fitness business, I was a trainer, right? I was a really good trainer. And I realized that, hey, I was trading time for money, right? Hours for dollars. And I needed to duplicate myself if I wanted to have the financial freedom or make the money that I wanted to make. Right. And so I realized pretty quickly that I had to figure out how to duplicate myself. Then I also realized that, hey, if I wanted to grow something, I had to learn how to market and sell, right? Mm-hmm. And so those are things they don't teach you in a health and exercise science career, right? Or degree. And so I had to go out and learn those things on my own. And so I really got this passion for learning business. I hired myself a business coach, joined a mastermind with other fitness business owners. And from there, after a couple of years, I was actually coaching other fitness business owners and running masterminds myself.
Nice.
So over that time, I realized that my passion wasn't for fitness. It was for business.
It was for business.
Right. And it was coaching, but it was coaching at another level in a different market. Right. So instead of coaching athletes, I was coaching business owners. And I think that one of my true passions and unique abilities is to be able to coach. So after about 15, going on 15 years in the fitness industry, I really got burned out of the actual grind of fitness, right? Being in the gym at 4:45 every morning, not getting home till 9:00 at night some nights. And I had when I decided to make that pivot and shift to real estate, I had a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old at home. And I had been married for 11 years at a time. Right. So it was no longer conducive to a married life than to start a family. But when I was 23 years old, right, I didn't have any responsibilities much. So that was fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Things change, right?
Things change and seasons of life change, right?
Okay. So you start to, I guess it sounds like see the writing on the wall. Did you wind down the business? Did you sell it off? What did you end up doing?
That's a great question because people ask me that all the time. And I actually didn't sell the business, right?
Oh, okay.
I winded it down. And I say I winded it down is I really just handed off my clients. So I had 14 people working for me. And so the trainers that were working for me, I basically gave them their clients, right?
Oh,
and
gotcha. Okay.
People say, well, why didn't you sell it? Right? Mm-hmm. Well, one, I was at the point of burnout. So really, to sell a complete business can be a long process, right? I'm talking 3, 6, 9, sometimes even a year. So I didn't have that time and I didn't want to go through that time. But also, talking to a mentor of mine, I had built this brand that was synonymous with my name. So the fact of being able to sell something to somebody else that everybody in the Greenville, South Carolina area, if they heard of Performance QSA, that was Vaughn Bethell.
It was Vaughn. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So
that makes sense.
The thought of somebody taking that and running it into the ground, like I still to this day have people that see me out in public and they're like, dude, how's the gym going? And I'm like, yeah. So I knew I didn't want to sell it. I didn't want to sell the brand. So basically I was able to sell the clientele off to the people that already had them. Right. So after 30 days, after making the announcement that I was getting out of the industry, I ended up closing the doors and walking away
that's quick.
From that industry. Yeah. Like I was literally to the point of burnout. And like I said, when you get to that point where the hours don't match the lifestyle that you want to live, and I wasn't giving my family 100%, when, I wouldn't even give my family 50% of the time. Right. So it was a point of change. It was a pivotal moment, I would say, in my life.
Absolutely. And it sounds like, man, once you identify that, you're like, let's go, dude. Like, no, there's no looking back. You said something there that I think is really interesting. Talking about, burnout and sort of that trajectory of a business. I was talking to a gentleman recently who sold off his portfolio of Orange Theory Fitnesses to private equity. It was $300 million exit. And he was telling me, like you had said, the process is 12 to 14 months, like from, you make a decision on investment banker to actually like closed. It was like 14 months, right? So he's working with his investment banker and he's like learning all this stuff about private equity and everything like that. And what he told me is one of the greatest things he had learned was the investment banker was telling him about the trajectory of most business owners. And he was saying most of them, the way they sort of pull a value add strategy is that most of them are on this trajectory where they climax and they start to come down and they say, we need to sell, we need to sell, we need to sell, we need to sell. And then like right as they hit and burnout, they decide to sell and, they get the minimal valuation. Right. And, so that was one of the things that I was thinking about as you're saying that, right? Yeah. You kind of mentioned like, but the cool thing is you figured it out, made that quick pivot and got out. At that point, then, did you have a plan for like the next big thing? Was it real estate? Were you thinking of going and getting a job, or where were you kind of at that point?
Well, I really didn't at that time, right? Because I had a little identity crisis at the time. And you think about it, how many of us have a business and we put our heart and soul into a business and then we define ourselves around that business, right? And so everybody knew me as the soccer guy and the sports performance guy, right? Because I was a soccer player. I trained predominantly soccer players, right? I own my own sports performance company and personal training company. So everybody knew me as the soccer guy and the fitness guy.
Right.
But that's what I associated myself with, right? And now that that's gone and I decided to make a change and pivot away from that, who am I? So I continued to do some coaching and some consulting for other fitness business owners for the next 6 to 12 months while I tried to figure out what it was that who I was, right? What my true identity was, and then what it was that I wanted to, pursue for my next career.
Right. Okay.
So that was a process. I actually, after about 6 months after I decided to walk away from the fitness industry, I did take a sales position with a high-end remodeling company. And it was like in-home sales, one call close for like, you get the little value packs in your thing that have all the ads and stuff in it, right? So somebody wants to build a, screen in their porch or build a sunroom or a kitchen remodel or whatever. I was one of the sales guys that were coming from when you made that phone call, right?
Okay.
And it was great. It was great for a while because I was like, man, this is, I don't have to make any decisions. I wake up every morning. They already have these appointments booked for me, 3 to 4 appointments a day. And you're telling me all I got to do is show up, get them to know, like, and trust me, and then sell them a sunroom. And then I can go about my day and not have to worry about anything. I was like, this is great. And it was. I made a lot of money. I broke all their sales records in that year's time. But about 6 to 9 months in, the deliverables on the back end weren't being met.
Ooh, yeah.
And guess what? I had no control over it.
You took the heat for that, huh?
I had no control over the deliverables, right? Because that was production, that was ownership. And who's the face of the company when I'm sitting at a kitchen table across from the client? It really didn't sit well with me. And I talked to my wife about it, and I just and you can't sell something that you don't believe in anymore, right?
Oh yeah, no way.
So that's when I realized that working for somebody else, it's not for me. I want to be able to control the entire experience from A to Z, right? Especially if I'm putting my name on it. And so I actually had a friend at the time, actually one of my wife's best friends. They're still really close friends. But she was doing some real estate. She had built a rental portfolio over about a 20-year period and started doing a couple flips. And so I was kind of living vicariously through her. during the time that I was working that sales position.
Just kind of watching her on the sidelines.
Yeah. And so, about a month before I left that company, we got together. We were like, we need to do something together. And long story short, we partnered to start REI Junkies, my company now.
Okay.
So we started this company in August of 2018. Right. And there's 3 of us that started that company. And after about a year into it, I realized that I'm a grinder. I'm doing 90% of the work. They were really looking for something that was part-time. So, very amicably, we came up with an agreement. I bought them out in the end of 2019, and I've been running it myself ever since.
Okay, awesome. Hey, and for our audience, real quick, can you give sort of an overview of what all REI Junkies encompasses? Because I know, I know you do a lot of stuff.
So REI Junkies is a family of companies with one common purpose, cause, and passion. And that's to provide the dream of homeownership through non-traditional financing to people that wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity, the traditional route, right? And so there's a couple different components of that, but they all work towards the same common cause, right? So we have my acquisitions company, which is our direct to seller company. So we go after off-market properties. It's basically a sales and marketing company, right? But we help sellers that are in difficult situations find a solution to their problem. And when we do that, we're buying the properties, we're fixing them up, not like a fix and flip, but not HDTV ready, but making sure all the major systems are good, right? So new roof if it needs it, plumbing and electrical up to date, installing central HVAC, making sure it doesn't have any foundational issues, clean it out, painting LVP. And then we're selling that property on owner finance to a borrower or a buyer that has a down payment, can show proof of income, and they just need a foot in the door because they don't tick all the little boxes that the traditional banks require right now today. Maybe they just need 12 months to tick those boxes, but they're tired of renting and they want to start owning.
Right.
So I have my buy and hold company. I have the owner finance company. And then on top of that, I own a underwriting and loan servicing company. So when we're selling these properties on owner finance, we want to make sure that the borrowers meet that certified ability to repay requirement, according to Dodd-Frank, but also that we're servicing the loan and reporting it to the credit bureaus to put them in a position to be able to refinance this out as fast as possible.
So you're actually helping them out through that ownership process where it's not just, it's giving them something, a piece that they can own, but the actual process itself is demonstrating like, hey, I can borrow, and you're creating a track record for them. Is that exactly? I got that right?
100%. And because we are investors and because we are taking the risk, when we sell to these borrowers, we are selling at a higher interest rate, but we're not trying to be we don't want them to be at a high interest rate for 30 years. We just want to give them that foot in the door to start building equity, start creating generational wealth, and then be able to refinance out within 12 months. Because it's funny, the same banks that won't originate the loan for a first-time home buyer because of lack of credit or missing, they don't have 2 years of W-2s or 2 years of tax returns or whatever. After 12 months of successful payment history, and they go back and look at that payment history and look at the equity they have, the down payment that they put down, how much the property is appreciated, will refinance, quick.
They have no issues. Man, that is so interesting. I could totally see that. Okay.
But I'm one taking on the initial risk, and that's what that's what they're not willing to do, but I am, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you take on the initial risk, the work of finding the property, prepping the property, right? Because I don't imagine the HGTV flips are actual properties that work for owner finance for these individuals, right? Exactly. So you're actually customizing it. Man, I love that so much. Anything else that the REI Junkies is doing?
That's most of it, man. Like we tried to, especially in the last couple of years, we've decided that we wanted to get really focused, right? And that focus, the acronym I always uses, follow one course until successful, right? So even though we have a couple of different, entities, they're all still focused on that one course, that one purpose, cause, and passion of helping people become homeowners, right?
Yeah, it sounds like they're integrated. I mean, they're all working together. They're feeding each other.
They're all vertically integrated. So, yes.
I love that. Cool. So, Vaughn, going from, I know you had a foundation in business, you had some experience prior to getting into real estate, but I'm trying to imagine you building this. And I'm thinking, at least for me, what the picture you just painted for me, maybe like day one wasn't the business plan. So can you sort of walk us through some of those major pivots along the way and how you got from, really, hey, day one real estate investor with your two partners to this awesome vertically integrated machine that you have nowadays?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So when we started this company in August of 2018, we didn't have any money and we had to figure out a way to make money with no money, right? And right. So as we started to do some research and studying and things like that, we found assignments or wholesaling, right? And so we realized that we had to put in, the sweat equity. And the sweat equity for us at that time was I was the one out going around and driving for dollars, right? Taking pictures of properties, writing down the addresses, sending them letters, sending them postcards. I was the one that was physically dialing people on my phone. And I was going online to see if I could find that phone number, right? Where there weren't a lot of skip tracing companies back then, right?
Yeah.
And I was the one physically text messaging from my phone to try to get in touch with people. And, so we realized that, you can do that with very little to no cost, but sweat equity. And then you can create something out of basically nothing, right? Mm-hmm. As long as you're good at talking to people, building a rapport, and then coming up with a solution that's a win-win. And so it took us about 4 months to actually get our first contract. But once we signed that contract, we assigned that contract for a $30,000 assignment fee. All right.
I love it.
And first deal. And I was like, this rocks. Man. Proof's in the pudding. Game time. Sold. Let's go. Right. So then it was game on. So, we did in our first year, 18 deals. And then in the second year, we did 33 deals. And we were starting to make some really good money. And then we were generating, a lot of cash, high profit margins, right? Cause there's, in the first year, it was 3 of us, but then in the second year, it was just me and I hired an executive assistant. And so I realized in that second year that I was generating a lot of cash, but I didn't really have any cash flow.
Right.
And one of the biggest principles I learned in my fitness business was to go away from selling sessions and packages to selling like a subscription model, right?
Right.
So monthly memberships. So I knew no matter what, if I didn't make a sale, I had a certain amount of income coming in every month. So I was like, how can I do this in real estate? And everything that we're taught and, learn as we grow up is rental properties.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So I had a seller that they financed me my first rental property. So it was a creative deal. They were willing to sell or finance and I was able to turn it into a rental property and I was cash flowing, but I wasn't cash flowing a lot, maybe 150, 200 bucks a month. And then I had to go do some repairs and I was like, man, cash flow's gone, right?
It's all gone.
Yeah. And why are they calling me for everything, man? The fan's not working or the HVAC's out. And I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And, and so shortly after I got that first rental property, man, I was actually, while we were listing a lot of our wholesale deals, our main place to market was Facebook Marketplace and Facebook groups.
Oh, okay.
And every time, and it never failed. The majority of people that would respond would be like, will you finance? Will you finance? Will you take $10,000 down? Will you take $5,000 down? Will you take $15,000 down? What's the monthly payment? I was like, I ain't gonna finance. How am I finance you? I'm just trying to get an assignment fee, right? But I was like, I got this property. I got seller financing on it. What if I financed it?
Oh,
right. And so this property I bought for around $50,000 and I financed it for $110,000.
Oh, wow.
And
in the same condition with like minimal repairs.
Didn't do anything to it. And so I got $20,000 down. And then I was making a spread between what I was paying my lender or the seller at this point, because he's my lender after financing it to me, and what they were paying me. But guess what the beauty of it was?
What's that?
I was making a lot more than that $150, $200 a month of cash flow. I was making about $450 a month in cash flow, and I wasn't getting any phone calls.
Yeah.
Because guess what? I'm the bank.
Yeah. You're not the owner at this point. Not your responsibility anymore.
It's not my responsibility. And what I tell people all the time, I said, listen, in my house, I got a mortgage on my house. And I said, if our HVAC goes out, I don't call Wells Fargo and be like, man, y'all need to come fix the HVAC. Right? So it's the same way, right? It's their house. They got to fix it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And so that was my first experience in the owner finance game. And then I started doing more and more deals like that. And then the big change after that was I'm a purpose-driven dude, man. Between my faith and just everything I do, I'm in this business to help people. I'm in this world to help people. And I was like, I need to have something for myself, but also for my team that when we wake up in the morning, we're excited to jump out of bed and go to work. And that's where we came up with our mission statement. It was to provide the dream of homeownership through non-traditional financing to 500 families by 12/31/2030. So that's the mission that drives us each and every day.
Have you always been missional like that? Was that like in your upbringing, or when would you say, I guess, you discovered that part of you?
And I think it goes back, man, to just the drive and determination from being an athlete, right? I was always striving to that next level. What's next? What's next, right? And what is the purpose that I'm going for? And growing up, that purpose was wanting to get a college scholarship.
Okay. Yeah.
My parents, they didn't have a lot of money, right? So they couldn't afford to send me and pay for my college. So if I was able to do what I love to do, which is at the time, play soccer and get paid, not how to get paid now, right? But get paid education paid for. That was my thing, right? So then in college, what was the next thing? Well, beyond graduation, from a performance standpoint, it was playing at a higher level, whether that was professionally or for the national team.
Okay.
So I ended up doing 2 World Cup qualifying stints with the Bahamas national team after I got out of college. So I participated in Germany 2006 and South Africa 2010 World Cup qualifying.
Oh, that's amazing. Right? Okay.
So then after that, it's like, what is the next thing? Well, I have this gym. I want to grow it to a certain level. I want to hit a certain, it was like, all right, can I hit $1 million of revenue? Right. And I never hit $1 million of revenue with the gym, but I got pretty close. We got about 900 and something. Right. Which for a gym, like a non-open membership, Planet Fitness type gym, that's significant. Right.
I mean, this is a personal training studio.
Sports performance.
When you consider
company.
the average gym membership, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. So our average client was paying us about $200 a month.
Yeah. Wow.
So then it was that. And then, as we got into real estate, I just knew that time between my fitness career and my real estate career, there's a period, and I mentioned it earlier, is I didn't know who I was and what my identity was. Mm-hmm. Right. I didn't know what my purpose was. And so I had this mission to have something that was purpose driven.
I love that.
So I didn't find that purpose until about 2 years into this game. Right. But now it's very clear. I know exactly why I'm here. I know exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. And if I fulfill that purpose, I fulfill the purpose, one, that God has for me, I feel, but also I feel the purpose financially for my family. Right? Because the more value I can provide, the more people I can help, the more value will come back to me in return.
Man, as you're saying that, I was just thinking, you're sort of painting this picture here for me of like a dichotomy of consistency, right? And what I mean by that is you want to stay consistent. So you gotta have grit, you gotta fight through, you have to continue, you gotta push. But at the same time, I hear you identifying these opportunities to pivot. How do you know when? Like, how do you know when, hey, do I continue down this path? Or you know what? No, it's time to pivot and I need to, I'm not thrown in the cards, but I'm pivoting here.
Well, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, right? And so in real estate, as well as anything, the way you're doing it doesn't always work. It may work for a time, but you need to be able to pivot with the times, right? With the changes that are happening around you. And a lot happens in the real estate world, right? But you also need that guiding light. You need that North Star to make sure that you're constantly moving forward, right? And, I always tell people, I've failed many a times, but my biggest thing is make sure that I fail forward. Right.
Right. Okay.
And I learn from the mistake and I continue moving forward and I get up and I continue moving forward. But from a pivot standpoint, with our purpose, cause and passion, how we exit that property is, there's different ways to do owner financing. There's different ways to provide home ownership. And that could be through lease options, rent to own, contracts for deeds, straight up owner financing.
Right.
When we first got it started with the owner finance pathway to home ownership program, we felt that we had to go out and fix up every property. Well, what we've learned in the past 12 to 18 months is that some of our borrowers, they're contractors, they're handymen. And, some of the fixes that we've done, they would have rather done it themselves to save money because they wanted different fixtures or whatever. So they're like, well, next time you get a property or keep us abreast of the properties that you're getting as soon as you get it, before you do any work, because we might buy it. We'll probably buy it, before you do any work to it. So,
wow.
Things always change. So you really got to change with the market and change for what people are wanting and demanding. Right.
Yeah.
So, and the biggest thing is you have to be open to making that pivot and making that change.
I love that you said that, because that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, man, what I'm hearing from you is like an openness and openness to like, hey, maybe this is working now, but maybe it's not the best way. Maybe it won't last forever. I was talking with a friend of mine, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago or so. And I was kind of recounting, this is in my real estate company, but I was kind of recollecting this past year. And I was like, man, I feel like literally every quarter I'm like, okay, guys, we're pivoting. Here's the new plan. Okay, guys, we're pivoting. Here's the new plan. And I'm not going to lie, at first, earlier in the year, there was this sense of like, man, dude, I'm messing something up, or like, I don't really have a business, because, it's not a business if it's constantly changing. And now, almost a full year later, I'm like, nah, dude, like this is the market, especially for real estate. And the only businesses, as far as I can see, friends, other businesses in this community and other communities, the only ones that are surviving are the ones that are open to consistently pivoting. And it might be a slight change, or it might be a huge overhaul, but that's what I'm seeing now. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%, man. And that's the thing is, like, things change quarterly, right? Things change monthly in the real estate space, right? And, your biggest thing is, like I mentioned before, is if you have that guiding light, that North Star, right? How you get there may change, but as long as you continue moving forward towards that North Star. And so we've changed significantly, just when we first started doing owner financing, when we first started doing investing, we've changed, right? So you got to pivot with the times. And speaking of, we're doing this not long after the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, right? And I think it was Mike Tyson that says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Right. And so
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but in real estate, we get punched in the mouth a lot, dude.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
What we think may happen, or what we predict, whether you're doing a fix and flip or a rental or whatever, something comes up and might jump out and punch you, right? Yeah. Something you didn't see in that renovation before you got into that renovation. But the same thing happens in the market. Right? Mm-hmm. So we just have to be willing to and open to, when that presents itself, when we get punched in the mouth, to be able to pivot and keep moving forward, right?
Yeah.
But we got to know what we're moving forward towards.
Absolutely. Do you think keeping your eye sort of on that North Star do you think that helps you with sort of this, I feel like there's a learning curve with like the amount of openness, the amount of how much you're okay with things shifting, changing on a dime. Do you think that you see some help through that whole process by staying fixed on that North Star?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as long as you continue, like I said, if you're moving forward, if it's taking you closer to that North Star, right, then you're doing the right thing. Right. It's when you're going away from that or going backwards that's when you need to question. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you can't go backwards. Sometimes you got to take a couple steps back to go, a lot further forward. Right. 2 steps back, 3 steps forward. But as long as you have the direction, that guiding light, that North Star, and you know what you're working towards.
For our listeners that they're hearing you say this right now, Vaughn, and they're like, man, that is some good stuff. I don't have a North Star. What would you say? I mean, what's the starting point? How do you figure that out for somebody that's in that situation?
Yeah. The first thing, man, is you got to be willing to step back and take the time to figure out what it is that you're here for, what your purpose is, and what's your purpose. If you're an investor, what are you investing for? Right. And that might be for you, your family. That might be for, sellers. In our case, is helping people realize that dream of homeownership, but we're helping multiple people along that pathway. But the biggest thing I tell people is they're like, I don't know what I'm here for. I don't know what my purpose is. Well, when was the last time you took time? And I said, I'm not talking about 15 minutes or an hour sitting down writing it on a pad of paper. Like, it took me the entire month of December of 2020 to come up with our purpose, cause, and passion.
Oh, dude,
like,
I love
I was in my basement doing a lot of goal setting, doing a lot of soul searching, trying to figure out what it was that I was passionate about that I believe is going to have the biggest impact in the world for what I'm doing, right, in my world, and something that I've felt that other people could relate to and get on board with.
Dude, I love that. That's so real. That's so raw. Have you read the book by Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil?
I've not read that one.
Being a real estate investor, right? We are all Robert Kiyosaki fans, right? The big purple book. And I did read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But a fellow entrepreneur really early on had mentioned Think and Grow Rich. And I was just like, okay. And so I suffered through 1, 2, 3, 4 listenings, because it's written a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I fell in love with that book. And I think mostly because the way God made me is very technical, very like, man, my mind is the thing that I use the most, like hands down. I'm huge into philosophy. I love thinking. I'll get lost in my own head to my detriment sometimes, right? And so that book really resonated with me. Well, I had several people recommend Outwitting the Devil. It took me a while, but I just read that thing recently, and it's amazing. And so in the conversation, they say the detriment of the devil will be the man that thinks, right? Those men that think are the men that cannot be easily influenced, right? That is, devil is powerless against men who think, right? And so that one principle right there is just like, just think. And it sounds simple. Sometimes to some people it might sound silly, but once you start observing the amount of times you go on autopilot, or the amount of times that I'll be the first to admit, lazily are like, man, I don't want to think about a solution to this. I don't want to think about the decision. I don't want to blah, blah, blah. Holy man. And so just hearing you say that right now, that totally, at least for me and this time of my life right now, I'm just like, yeah, man, that makes perfect sense to me. Put in the work, like you said, 30 days, man, entire month of December to come up with that. But look at the payoff, right? Look at where
Absolutely.
You are now.
Sometimes you got to slow down to go fast, right? And it was by me taking that time and just sitting back and reevaluating and determining what it is that I wanted to do and the impact that I wanted to have. And yeah, that took me 30 days, right? The month of December. And why the month of December? Because things in real estate are slow. And then life is slow in the month of December because you're between that Thanksgiving and Christmas time, right? And so I was able to spend time at home with my family in my basement working. And so out of that, I had so much clarity, right? Because I wasn't in my office where I had a bunch of distractions going on every day. I was at home, right? So I had a lot of clarity because I was able to spend time with myself and get real deep on what it is that I wanted to accomplish. But here we are 4 years later, and that purpose, cause, and passion hasn't changed, right?
Yeah.
How we're achieving it has changed,
right?
But that mission statement, that purpose, cause, and passion hasn't changed. And I don't know many people out there that can say the same thing over the last 4 years, right?
Yeah. And
it's because they never sat down and gotten really serious about what it is that they're doing and why they were doing it and the impact that they wanted to have. And so, I'm not saying that has to be in real estate, right? Some people may do it and realize that, it's not in real estate. But at least take the time to do that introspection and figure out, what the impact is that you want to have in this industry or in the world. So
I love that, man. And you also paint a really important picture there, which is a question I would have for you. But how do you know when you're actually pivoting and when you just have ADHD and you're being an entrepreneur that jumps all over the place? And to your point, go ahead, please answer that question. I'd love to hear
it. So for me, one of the biggest things is that what that clarity gives us is that, hey, you ask yourself, you make your decisions based off that North Star. Is this helping our mission? Is this moving us closer to our mission? And if it's not, do we need to do it? Right? So pivoting might be hey, how we do it is we pivot on how we do it, but not why we do it. Right?
Yeah.
So
our
the why
strategy can change, but not the mission, right? Not the purpose.
And think about how much technology has advanced just in the short time. I've been doing this 6 years, a little over 6 years. Technology has advanced significantly in that 6 years, right? AI, skip tracing, all this stuff that I said at the beginning I didn't have.
Yeah.
Right. All these things, we have to pivot on how we do it. Right. But it doesn't change what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Right. So when you're somebody that loves shiny objects like myself, it's tough. Right. It's tough, dude. That's entrepreneurs, man. That's visionaries. Yeah. But I got to keep asking myself, is this moving me closer to my goal? Right. And putting a number on it, our purpose, cause, and passion is not just, hey, I want to help, people become homeowners through non-traditional financing and realize that dream of home ownership. But we exist to help people realize the dream of home ownership through non-traditional financing. And we want to do that for 500 families by 12/31/2030. There's a number.
Yeah. You're very specific.
So are we closer to that number? Are we moving closer to that number? How far off were we? Are we on track? Right? I got 6 more years to do that.
That's good, dude. And you're committed, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
I love that, man.
I was going to say, how I do that between now and 2030, at the end of 2030, will probably change. Right? But am I achieving that goal? And that's my scorecard.
I love that. And you even encouraged me. I'm like, man, yeah, December is that time of year. I need to relook at everything. Because very similar. I had a similar story to yours where I realized I need to think about this stuff and lay it all out. But I think it's important to revisit it from time to time as well. So another thing that you brought up that I had said this a little bit earlier, but I hear from you is opportunity. Man, it sounds like your ability to identify opportunity, right? You see a problem. Hey, I got a solution. Hey, there's opportunity here, which is a huge part of the pivot. So if I had to guess though, from hearing you talk here, when you're faced with opportunity, sort of the litmus test on whether it's something that should be pursued as a pivot or not is, hey, is this moving us closer or further away from our purpose? Is that correct?
100%, right? Because as entrepreneurs, as visionary, we can find opportunity in everything.
Oh yeah, right? For sure.
if there's not enough time in the day to take advantage of every opportunity that comes in front of us, right? Yep. So we have to have a filtering system to be able to determine what goes into that filter, and what is something that we're going to actually consider and dig deeper into, right? And for me, is it moving us closer to that goal of 500? And if it's not, I don't need to waste my time on it.
Yeah, man. That's good, man. So you talked about that December where you came up with that purpose. The moment you got through with that plan and everything, was it sort of like this aha? Did you just feel like, man, this is it? Like this struggle, this here, there, all over the place. Like, this is it. This is what I was missing.
Dude, it frees up so much mental capacity, right? And because what the guiding light is, what the North Star is, right? So when things come, like we talked about, those opportunities, those shining objects, when your team comes to you and say, hey, is this a deal that we should be looking at? Like, the decision making is a lot easier there, right?
Yeah.
Because, I'm sure you've had your team come in and look at a deal and like, hey, is this a good deal? And you're looking at it every different way across the sun. And that's a lot of decision making capacity. Yeah. That's a lot of decision making capacity, right? That just over time, it drains us. But when you have, that guiding light, that purpose have to help you make that decision and say, hey, and even when you're training your team and you're growing your team and you're scaling your team and you're teaching them how to identify, a good deal, like, here's the guidelines, right?
Yeah.
This is our criteria. Yeah. Is it a pathway to home ownership? House. Does it fit the buy box? Nope. Okay. Well, yeah, I know we could take it down and possibly wholesale and make a good bit of money, but that's taking us further away from that's taking us away, right? Away from our goal, right? And not saying that, we don't have good deals that we wholesale, but I'm not going to go spend a lot of time trying to make a deal happen that doesn't fit our buy box. Now, if the deal is there and they're just giving us a layup, absolutely. But yeah, that's the biggest thing I've seen, dude, is that it really helps from a decision-making capacity, but also it helps train your team on what a deal really is.
It's a filter system. I mean, if you think of like, any sort of program and filtering stuff, like when you throw those filters on, what does it do? It cleans everything up and it says, hey, this is what I want to see through this certain lens. And that's all you're doing, not to diminish it, because it's huge, man. I think this is huge. Like I said, you're encouraging me to go back and say, all right, where are we at with everything? Are we still on track? Are we not on track? Because I'll be honest, as I'm talking with you, I'm like, man, I think in our real estate company, we're slightly off track here, not so much with some of the other things we're doing, but yeah, man, I love that. That's so good. That's so good, Vaughn. Now, one thing I want to kind of go back to, sometimes I get into these situations where I'm moving in a certain direction, right? So let's say it's this pathway to home ownership. Like, this is what everything's moving towards, right? So I have this thing that, I'm doing, and maybe it's working, maybe it's not working. And I don't quite know, like, hey, should I ride this thing out, or should I just put a kibosh on it and move to this other new thing? What are some like tips and tricks? I mean, is it really truly just that one filter, or how do you know, like, hey, I should continue this thing or I shouldn't continue this thing? Whether that's like a transition from, flipping to wholesaling, or wholesaling to novations, or whatever it is, insert whatever thing. Yeah. But how do you really know? Like, do I ride this out, or is it now time to start looking for opportunity and be open to other things?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the success that you're having, right? And how you feel, right? So if you're a flipper and you're a very successful flipper, right? And it's not taking a lot of energy from you, and you're not 100% like completely stressed out, and you're getting physically ill because you're so stressed out and stuff like that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? Maybe you just add a purpose-driven component behind it. Right.
Right.
But if it's that, even if you're successful at it, and let's take me in the gym, right? My gym was very successful, but I got so burnt out that it was affecting me mentally, physically, and emotionally. And it was having a massive toll negatively on my home life.
Right. Okay.
Right. So a decision needed to be made. And so, really, I know very, very, very successful flippers. I know very, very, very successful wholesalers. I know people that just do novations are very successful. Right.
Right.
So are you successful? Are you reaching your goals, both personally, financially, whatever it may be? right? And if you're, not super stressed out, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or is it something that you can delegate and hand off to somebody else while you go pursue something else that maybe gives you the extra entrepreneurial fix, right?
Man, that's good. That gives a few different lenses that a person could look through.
For me, a big part of mine is I figured out a way to create active income, so cash today, and create cash flow and equity, right? So I'm hitting all the three areas that I want to hit. Whereas if you're just wholesaling, you're just getting cash today, right? And if you got rental properties, you might not be getting cash today, but you're building equity and appreciation and net worth, right? And so, and you might not be getting a ton of cash flow unless you bought them all outright with cash, right? So, I'm able to hit the three areas that I want to hit by my one exit strategy, by my one model, and make a difference in the world, have an impact. So that was a major thing for me is like, if I was still trying to figure out how to create, cash flow, that'd be a different story because then I'd be trying to figure out what's the next step or how do I create more cash flow. If I was still trying to figure out how to create equity and net worth, doing something different than what I'm doing, then that'll take my focus over somewhere else. So, it really depends on the person and what they're doing. So I always say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're doing well, just keep doing it and do more of it.
I mean, and it kind of goes back to what you've really talked about this entire time, but like critically thinking about it, right? Like, not just on your identity or your purpose or your mission or all that, but like just maybe that thing itself. Like, is this a thing worth doing? You looked at it holistically, like you said. You didn't wind your business down because you were struggling and it wasn't successful. You wound it down quite simply because you're like, this amount of money I'm making or, this problem I'm solving is just not worth what, the detriment of your personal life or the burnout or whatever. And so you just looked at it from that lens and was like, yeah, man, it's not going to do it. We gotta kind of wind it down.
Yeah. Or the amount of money I was making wasn't making up for the pain I was feeling on the other side of it. Right.
Right.
So when your pain gets big enough, that's where a lot of people, like especially guys, we don't want to do anything about it until the pain gets big enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what you got to have. So if there's no pain and you're doing well, like keep doing it if you're having fun. But if that pain gets so big that you got to make a change, then you need to sit down and listen to your body or listen to your mind or listen to your emotions or whatever they may be. Right.
Real quick, you had mentioned this, but let's do a breakdown of it, right? You're talking about like a sound business model with, especially for real estate investing with your business, right? And there's a few things we need. We need to be able to generate large amounts of cash. We need some cash flow. We need some equity, right? So those were kind of your big ones, right? So can you break down how your business model accomplishes that for somebody that, they're maybe hearing this, but they're like, well, what does that mean? How is that happening?
Let's go from cash now, right? So when I was wholesaling, and that's our only exit strategy or our primary exit strategy, we were averaging between $15,000 and $20,000 per assignment fee, right? So now when we own or finance a property, you know what our average down payment is?
And I think for the industry standard, it's like 10 to 20%, right? Something like that.
Yeah, well, it all depends. Right?
Okay.
So 10 to 20%. Yeah. But if you look at it a dollar amount, our average down payment is $30,000.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So that's almost double what my assignment fee was, right?
Right.
But guess what? I'm getting that down payment, which takes the place of my assignment fee. So it's more than that. But I also have cash flow every single month coming in after that. Right.
On those payments.
And that cash flow on those payments. And I'm averaging about $682 a month in cash flow on my notes.
Oh, wow.
Right. And guess what the best part about that cash flow is? It's 100% cash flow.
That's right.
There's
you don't have anything to deduct.
no taxes, insurance, maintenance, or repairs because I'm the bank.
Yeah.
My average cash flow on my rentals right now is hovering around $200. But guess what? I just had to go replace a roof on one of my houses. $7,500.
In the toilet.
That's 3 years of cash flow. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now those properties are appreciating and I'm building more equity in it. But so now I'm getting cash. I got cash now on the down payment, cash flow on the monthly payments. And then I create instant equity when I create the note. So if I have, let's say I have $100,000 into a property, purchase and rehab. Well, I have to be able to sell that property for at least $150,000 to $160,000. I like to create at least $50,000 of instant equity, right? So I'm creating instant equity when I create the note, and then I have equity on the back end. So if I put that person in the position in 12 months to cash me out or in a full refinance, I get all the equity back out to go do it again.
That's right.
Right? If it takes them 3 years, if it takes them 3 years, I got 2 extra years of interest payments, cash flow coming to me, and then I get to take that equity back out and go do it again.
That's right.
Right.
That's
so
good,
I'm able to achieve all 3 of my goals from a real estate investor standpoint in one exit strategy.
Man, that's good stuff. I appreciate that explanation. All right, dude. On that note, Vaughn, it's been amazing having you here, man. I appreciate all your insights. I've learned so much today. Can you share with our audience, what you're up to right now, where they can reach out and contact you, catch up with you, and stay along for, what you got going on?
Yeah, man. So, to stay true to that North Star, our biggest thing right now is continuing to achieve that goal of 500 families and homes by 12/31/2030 through our Pathway to Homeownership program. So a lot of what we're doing is just, this is a strategy that requires raising capital from private lenders. So we actually we have a webinar series that we do, every 2 weeks, and we're probably going to do that to every week. But I want to invite the listeners to go check out our webinar series at triplepassivewebinar.com. And it's also, I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, probably more active on Facebook than LinkedIn, but Vaughn Bethell, Vaughn Bethell. I'm probably the only one on both those platforms. So if you just go search me, and, message me, and my company is REI Junkies. So go to reijunkies.com.
All right, folks, you heard it. Go check Vaughn out. Catch him on Facebook. Catch him on Instagram. Man, Vaughn, thank you so much for coming on. I know our audience is going to really enjoy this podcast, and I appreciate you so much. Any last words before we go?
No, man, Devin, I appreciate you, and I want to thank you, man. It's been a pleasure. And if there's anything I can do for you, just let me know.
I love it, brother. Thank you so much. A true go-giver. Thank you, Vaughn.
My pleasure.